Everybody, welcome to Water Walkers. Today we're going to talk top four of the Big Ten and the 2023 football season. When I was doing this, it wasn't as easy as I thought to get the number 4 team because there's so many questions in the Big Ten right now. There's teams trying to redesign themselves, building themselves to be a little bit different, to compete. There's teams that are up and coming for only 1 year. So without consistency, it's kind of hard to place them. And there's some of the teams that kind of dropped last year to say, okay, are they going to jump back up, or is this drop something that we're going to see happen for a year or two, and so they can rebuild themselves and come back up? So when I did this, I actually came up with the mindset my number 4 team was going to come from the West. I had nobody from the West last year at all in my mind, and rightfully so. They just wasn't good. I actually got 2 teams from the West that I think they're up and comings, right? And I listen, Purdue is always a consistent team to think about, but they actually have, like, when you talk about talent to schedule, they have one of the hardest schedules. So I don't think it's going to be in their favor this year to bring them involved into this. So, and they lost a lot as well. And so can't do Purdue, even though my wife's family and my family for over the last 18 years, they would like me to. I just can't do it. Sorry guys, I just can't do it. Hey, good job making the West title last year. So when I did it, I was between Nebraska and Wisconsin. I know what you're saying. Nebraska sucked for the last how many years? I get it. Trust me. But I'm looking at teams that I think that are renewing their identity and that has an opportunity to win the West, which I don't think would be hard to win the West, to be honest with you. I think Minnesota lost enough. Purdue lost enough in their scheduling. Iowa, they're always going to have a strong defense. Their offense was the worst in the country. I don't see them making enough moves to think that they're just going to automatically be there. I don't know if they'll be as bad, but I'm just not going to put my chips on them. So I went with between those two, and I'm looking at Nebraska. I'm like, okay, Matt Rule came over from the NFL, and he's going to come and try to change this team. They did a great amount of scouting. They did a good job in the transfer portal. I think they're going to have some good recruits coming. If you give that man 3 years, I think he'll turn this team into a competitive, great Nebraska team that we all want to see. Since Frazier, way back in the day, we haven't seen Nebraska play anybody competitive like that. We've seen competitive games, but I'm talking in a consistent level. I'm talking about competitive as in competing for a Big Ten championship. It's just not there. So I think they could be there under Matt Rule. I just don't think it's going to start this year. I think this is the part of the transformation that's going to happen. I think they might be the number 5 team, and that's why I got them up close to number 4. But my 4th team's Wisconsin. I like what Luke Fickell did over there in Cincinnati. He's a big-time Big Ten guy. He played at Ohio State, coached at Ohio State, linebacker, assistant head coach. He had 1 year as a head coach at Ohio State, which was horrible, but not his fault. He was thrown in there with all kinds of issues that was happening after Tressel got sat down and whatnot. But he showed himself as a great coach in Cincinnati, competing against top teams, even making a top 4 in the playoffs, which is absolutely unheard of. Cincinnati's going to the Big 12 soon, and great things are happening. He was the start of that transformation and that identity, him and some other coaches that he brought on. I think he's bringing that same attitude to Wisconsin. It's going to be a rugged, tough defense. Obviously, linebacker. I believe in the linebacker there because I think he's the best linebacker coach in college football, in my opinion. I absolutely love Lou Fickell, and I like the attitude that he's going to have for Wisconsin. And I think they're going to try to make this new identity away from old school Wisconsin football. And they need to, because this whole mindset of stay old with Nebraska, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Minnesota and all that. Listen, all that's got to go and get with the reality of 2023 spread offenses, mix between speed and strength. The Big Ten needs to start building their athletes up to compete against the SEC of this world if they want to be considered one of the elite conferences. They're a great conference. I think they're the second best conference. Obviously, SEC is number one due to 3 teams on there. I'm not going to get in debate like, oh man, SEC and what Big Ten. I don't believe it. Listen, Auburn lost 2 years in a row against Penn State. I mean, there's great teams and there's bad teams in both conferences. You're not going to have me thinking Vanderbilt or Missouri or Mississippi State's great or elite. It's not going to happen. South Carolina, I think they're going to be a great team this year, but what have they ever done? Nothing. So don't even bring that mess to me. I don't believe it. I believe teams build up to win and compete against their conferences, and sometimes it hurts. And I think it hurts because you play this speedy SEC teams, and you're all big and bulk only, and you can't keep up with them. That's why Ohio State, way back in the day, in 2012 and 13, you started seeing that transformation into that hybrid kind of Big Ten team that can compete against SEC and compete against ACC, Big Ten, and so on. They compete against the Pac-10 as well. That's what they built, and that's what I think the whole Big Ten needs to do. Bringing over USC and UCLA is going to help that. I hope that Notre Dame comes over as well. I think Penn State has turned that kind of way as well. The build that Michigan State has been trying to turn into that. Michigan's still stuck in the old days. I think that's actually going to hurt them this year because of it. But anyways, I got Wisconsin at number 4. After that ridiculously rant I just went on with, and I like what Luke Fickell's going to do there. I have too many questions to go through and think that this person's going to be great. This person, I don't even know what they have going, but I understand what they always have. They always have strong trenches. They always have good tight ends. They always got decent linebackers. So I believe when you bring in the presence of a good coach like that, someone who's going to make changes, someone's willing to bring coaches that are willing to change on top of all the talent that you can get and that you hit the portal with and that you're going to bring in, I think this team is a future team that's a relevant team, top 25, top 15 team in the future. And I think this year is a top 25 team, number 4 in the Big Ten. So I'm giving it to Wisconsin. My number 3 team, Penn State. I'm going with Penn State on this. I think Penn State has been very relevant in the Big Ten for years now. I mean, you look back at the last 15 years, it's definitely been Penn State who's been relevant. Ever since James Franklin went there, he's built a great program, right? Never elite, but he's built it great. Now, he's been pushing them to be elite each and every year. And you have moments in thinking that's an elite game or that was an elite play and they're doing things, but they always seem to stub their own toe going into down the season. You know, they go out there and they beat Auburn at home. The next year they go to or at Penn State, and the next year they go to Auburn and beat it. And you're like, okay, they're competing. It was great games. The actual one in 2021, Auburn was a decent, good team, and it was a good competitive game. It wasn't so much this last one. Auburn was horrible, but they competed against Ohio State and they competed against some top-notch talents. James Franklin needs to push this team a little harder. They got recruiting going on. They have the number 3 in the nation, not in the Big Ten, in the nation. The number 3 running back duo coming back. They're there. It's looking great. They have a starting wide receiver. They got 4 starting offensive linemen. They got, like Singletary, one of the best running backs. And then on top of all that, you also have Drew Aller coming as a quarterback, which I think Drew Aller should have been the quarterback last year. I'm not even going to start with that 6-7 year. How long has that quarterback been there? Like, he didn't do nothing. Drew Aller should have been there last year, and this time he would have been even better. You'd have been talking about a team that's competing for a Big Ten championship for sure. I think if that would have happened, they got 7 out of 11 defensive starters coming back. Penn State is going to be a strong competition for the Big Ten and the state. I think they're a top 15 team. They're going to be one of the best teams. I got them going 10-2, 9-3. I think there's a chance they can they can even get better than that. Honestly, they play Ohio State, Michigan, and Michigan State. I don't think Michigan State can beat them. So there's even a chance that they can go 11-1 if they can beat Michigan. I don't think they'll beat Ohio State at Ohio State, just because the way that their team's built and our team's built, it's not. I just think we have the upper hand when it comes to wide receivers and stuff like that. And the fact that they did lose out like Joey Porter Jr., they did lose really good talent on that few they did lose on. But I think it'll be close. I think they're going to compete against Ohio State, and I think they're going to compete against Michigan as well. So my number 3 team is definitely going to be Penn State. Let's see if James Franklin can make them elite that he preaches about each and every year. He's not going to tell me that they're elite. I need to see that they're elite at a consistent basis. So they've always been great, but this year they might show us that they're elite, and I'm looking forward to that and continue to see that the Big Ten is growing into that kind of teams around there. So number 3, I'm going to give Penn State. Number 3, they got 6 out of 11 offense, 7 out of 11 defense coming back. So I think that's a pretty good combination to have a great season. On top of that, they have one of the best coaches in college football. Great coaching, not elite, James. You can do it. So my number 1 and number 2, I'm kind of going to do this a little different. I know everyone's saying, like, I already know who he's going to pick. But, like, I have reasons why I'm going to pick who I'm going to pick and why I'm not going to pick who I'm not going to pick. So let's just mix it up, right? Let's mix it up and just talk about it a little bit. Let's bring up Michigan. On paper, Michigan should be the team to beat in the Big Ten. They won the Big Ten last 2 years. They beat Ohio State last 2 years, one at home, one on the road. So absolutely, they have the number 1 running back duo in the country, coming in with Corns and Edwards. So that's absolutely tough to beat already. Then you add they have the number 1 offensive line in the country coming back. So you have the best running back with the best offensive line. It's a combination of some disaster for some defensive linemen. There's going to be a lot of out of breaths. We're going to rotate a lot to be able to play against the Michigan. JJ's coming back. JJ was just above average quarterback for me until end of last year, and then he started looking good, and then he got exposed a little bit in the playoffs. I'm not going to sit there and say he's elite. He's a good quarterback, and I think he can become great if he gets more opportunities to pass the ball and build chemistry with his wide receivers. That would help, Jimmy. That would help. If you would just stop running the ball 80% of the time, your quarterback can actually develop a little bit. I don't want to hear all that. Well, he did it against Ohio State. No, Ohio State didn't have no safeties. One time they had a defensive end that was trying to keep up with a wide receiver. They had another guy trip. I mean, it wasn't like he was an elite quarterback. He just threw it up and things happened and the ball bounced their way. The running back was being stopped to the end and they were worn out, hands down to them on staying with the running game, wearing out that defensive line. They did a good job. I'm not taking anything away from them, not making excuses of. It just doesn't mean that the quarterback was elite because they won. Let's just be honest with you. He wasn't elite because of that. Consistency is what you need to build elite. A good game, a great game, an elite play is not elite quarterback. But they do have the running backs. They do have the line. They do have a quarterback that has knowledge that could be a great quarterback in the right situation. He could be dual threat. He could play a bigger role this year. They're not completely weak on defense either. They got some guys coming back that can do some things. They don't have a top 10 wide receiver group. I don't see a really great tight end on the wide receiver side, tight end side. So passing the ball, I'm not saying that I don't see a wide receiver that can cause separation against elite coverage. And I think that's why Penn State can do something if Penn State can cause pressure. The whole big thing is, can that line be penetrated? If you can penetrate the line and slow the run down and force the pass, I don't think Michigan has as great of a team as you've seen the last couple of years. I do think that they are dangerous because of that running game, that line, and that quarterback. By all means, that's why I got them in the top 2. I just don't see anything else that tells me that they're an elite. Like, I can't name you one wide receiver that I would take over 100 different receivers before them. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It's just not there. And they have grown. Like, they have did excellent out there and getting young talent over to Michigan. I just don't think they utilized it. Like, they don't build them up. They just want to run the ball. And so maybe they have something I don't know. Maybe I'm going to be surprised. I don't know. But when you got question marks, it got to bring the number down. I think they have question marks at elite talent at wide receiver. I think they have question marks at tight end. I think they have question marks on some of the defensive line that they lost. Who's that? How's that going to look coming into this? So I have no question marks on the running game, no question marks at the offensive line. And I'm not even going to put a question mark on the quarterback because he's good to great quarterback. And if he gets the right amount of snaps and throws in every game, he'll grow. Now, Michigan doesn't get me mad because this is the third straight year with them with the weakest schedule in the Big Ten. They don't even play a Power 5 non-conference game, which is supposed to be a must in the Big Ten, even though they're going to screw Ohio State because of the Washington game they had scheduled and not wanting to fly them twice out into the West Coast, which I think is just absolutely quit whining. Don't mess with our schedule. Let Ohio State play it out. Let them tough it out. Let them be challenged. Stop doing it. And I don't agree with them getting a third straight year. I think this week's schedule will actually hurt Michigan. Absolutely hurt them. Well, mostly because if it does come down to them being into a top 10 position and another team's tied with them who has a strong one, there's no way they can't look at the fact that this is another weak schedule that they're playing. They need to punish them for that. It needs to happen. So, weak schedule, you're not being competitive enough throughout the year. You got to only play Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State. You're not really playing too much of an elite schedule. And even that, you're playing a lot of it at home. So, I can't get behind their schedule and say that they're going to be competitive enough to be pushed to be better each and every week. So that kind of weakens it a little bit. But they did win the last 2 years. They got the East title. They got the Big Ten title. They showed us that they can compete in the playoffs and big games. Jim only done that twice his whole career, and that was the last 2 Ohio State games. So that's that. So let's get Ohio State. Question marks. Let's start with question marks. Ohio State offensive line, big question mark. No one knows. No one knows who's going to be what. They did bring in a couple transfers. They got one guy they just brought in. Maybe he starts. I don't know, man. There's just so many unknowns when it comes to the offensive line, especially at the tackle position, which is just to protect our quarterback, right? So when you protect the quarterback, you got to have the right tackles, the left tackle. If he's a right-handed, right tackle, if he's a left-handed quarterback, the blind side. And there's question marks of that. So that makes you worried. I think there's one returner on the whole offensive line as a starter. So I don't know. I feel like with that question mark, it is a huge concern to put them too high up with that. There's also the quarterback. Now, the question mark with the quarterback isn't an extreme concern because I think Ryan Day is a good enough quarterback coach to be able to do whatever he needs to do to get him ready. I think Kyle McCord will be there. He has chemistry with Marvin Harrison Jr. I think all that chemistry will work itself out. They have elite wide receivers. When you're talking about Marvin Harrison Jr., you're talking about Emeka Egbuka, you're talking about Julian Fleming, you're talking about, even the rookie Cornell Tate is absolutely amazing. But you got Ballard, you got Xavier Johnson, you got the second dual running back in the country when you got Mayan Williams and Henderson coming back, and they're healthy at 100%. You got tons of defensive players coming back and talent. I think the young Sonny Styles is going to show up at safety, a safety-driven defense. You got Tommy Eichenberg, one of the best linebackers in the country, coming back. You got JTT and Jack Sawyer coming back for the third year off the edge. They're always a third year kind of like a jump you've seen with Young and the Bosa brothers. I think you'll see that with that as well. There's the plus and the minuses between the two. If they get the offensive line to be average or above, this team's going to do something special. I think this team will not only win the Big Ten, they'll beat Michigan once again, and Ohio State is my number 1. Michigan is my number 2. So that's my top 4 of the Big Ten. Thank you for watching. Please comment, like, share, and subscribe. I want to continue to do this ministry. I love you. God bless you, and may God be all the glory. In Christ's name, amen.